I'm Deidre, and I'm going to be talking about my research studying how Indiana residents think about energy sources and energy policies. So first, it might be helpful to review some terminology. When talking about energy sources, this includes coal, oil, natural gas, solar, wind, hydroelectricity, geothermal, biomass, and nuclear. And when talking about energy use, this refers to energy used in transportation, residential, commercial, industrial, and electric power sectors. The energy mix refers to the breakdown of the contributions of each energy source to the total amount of energy consumed. And finally, to decarbonize means to move away from energy sources that emit carbon dioxide. This is the energy mix for the state of Indiana. And as you can see, Indiana primarily relies on the use of fossil fuels, such as natural gas, coal, and oil. Only about 6.5% of the energy comes from renewable sources, and nuclear energy is not used at all. The coal, oil, and natural gas used in Indiana account for 184,000 tons of carbon dioxide emitted per year, and this is roughly equivalent to 3.6 million cars driven. Thus, Indiana could significantly reduce CO2 emissions by decarbonizing the energy system. So how can we build statewide support for decarbonization in a state that ranks 7th in coal production and 3rd for coal consumption? To start, I wanted to understand what energy sources Indiana residents hope to use in the future, what energy policies they support or oppose, and the perceptions and beliefs that underlie the answers to these questions. I collected data through a short paper survey and a semi-structured interview. The survey asked people to estimate the current energy mix for Indiana and describe the energy mix they wanted in 2050. And for the interview, I asked people what energy sources they wanted to use and why, and the policies they supported or opposed and why. Currently, I'm in the process of collecting data, which means interviewing people in public locations across Indiana. To date, I've interviewed 7 participants in Greene County and Morgan County, located in central Indiana. And while 7 people may seem like a small number, getting people to sit down for interviews can be a time-intensive process. After asking 72 people to participate, only 7 volunteered. And next we'll move on to the results, and keep in mind these results are not final and are based on a very small sample. So this table shows the actual energy mix for Indiana compared to the energy mix that participants estimated and the energy mix that people want in the year 2050. The important thing to pay attention to here is that people want to see a decrease in fossil fuel resources and an increase in renewable energy sources. And this table presents the number of people who indicated they wanted to use more, less, or the same amount of each energy source, and there are 3 important findings here. First, people were divided on fossil fuel resources. Second, most people want to increase the use of wind and solar. And finally, there were more unknown answers and disagreement on energy sources that are less familiar, such as biomass, hydroelectricity, and geothermal. Also worth noting the unanimous agreement that nuclear energy should not be used in the state of Indiana. Participants were asked about 3 state-level policies and 3 national policies. And you can see here that participants tended to support state-level policies, but were more divided on the national policies. And while a full qualitative analysis has not yet been performed, a few themes have emerged. First, the idea that decreasing the use of coal means economic loss for Indiana, either through job loss or loss of state revenue, and here you can see a participant's quote that represents this theme. And next, participants were unanimous on nuclear, perceiving nuclear to be too dangerous to use in Indiana through fear of leaks, accidents, or espionage. And finally, participants shared the sentiment that we should use energy sources that are available. However, there was disagreement on what sources participants considered to be available, such as these 2 contradictory quotes from different people, where one participant thought oil was widely available and another thought oil was being used up. So moving forward, This research design can be applied in other contexts, such as understanding how people think about climate change impacts in relation to energy sources, or it can be applied in other states that rely primarily on fossil fuels. Further, it can be applied to different populations, such as policymakers or industry leaders. Finally, at least 40 more interviews will be collected for this study, and results from this study will be used to inform later research projects that seek to understand how to build support quickly for decarbonization in the state of Indiana.